I think a lot of the industry's been overcomplicated, most of it probably by older software and everything having to be bolted on and added to a platform that was built 20 years ago. So I think we're just trying to keep it as simple as possible, ultimately get back to the nuts and bolts, and that's just delivering a policy ultimately. There's a good old Arabic saying, no matter how far you go down the wrong road, turn back. With what we're seeing in AI, which is absolutely perfect for the insurance industry. Run softwares in parallel, and you've got that opportunity to do that today and do it very quickly. So I think it's worth starting from scratch.
Hello, my name is Jason Reichl, and you're listening to Risk Management Brick by Brick. I'm fascinated with people who are helping build and maintain the physical world around us. On each episode of this podcast, we'll dive in with a risk manager, speak to them about how technology plays a role in this process.
Hello, welcome back. We're live at ITC, Brick by Brick. I'm Jason. I'm joined by Robert Lewis, the CEO of Intex Insurance Software. I loved your thesis when I was doing this, simple tools win. Why don't we just start right there? What does that mean?
I think a lot of the industry's been overcomplicated, most of it probably by older software and, everything having to be bolted on and added to a platform that was built 20 years ago. So I think we're just trying to keep it as simple as possible, ultimately get back to the nuts and bolts, and that's just delivering a policy ultimately.
I love that. You had a talk in the UX theater. Why is simplicity not just what I'm struggling with here is I agree with you. I agree we've overcomplicated, we've lost the threads as the kids say. What's the answer for that? Is it rethinking everything from the beginning, tearing it down and getting back to base? What's basics mean in 2025? That's the confusing thing.
There's a good old Arabic saying, no matter how far you go down the wrong road, turn back. And I think you need to pretty much...
It's not a loop.
No, exactly. And I think with technology where it is now, with what we're seeing in AI, which is absolutely perfect for the insurance industry, I do think there's a good opportunity to start right from the beginning, run softwares in parallel, and you've got that opportunity to do that today and do it very quickly. So I think it's worth starting from scratch.
Why don't you give me where the company is at in 2025 and where would you like to see it in the next few years?
This was our first year of going to market. We started in January. The company's been around a long time, but really in the London market and across Africa, bit of Europe also. But we came into the US about 3 years ago, adapted the software to the US market, went to market around about this time last year. This was our first show. It was a really good move for us. It sort of gave us some confidence, that there was interest in the product. We've picked up a total of 7 clients so far this year, mainly MGAs, pretty low-hanging fruit. We're a pretty cheap entry for them. So that's been a very good move for us. I think from our side, we've got very strong reinsurance software. And what we're really aiming for is a large carrier in the specialty space. So that's what we're trying to pick up as a client. And I'd say if we end 2026 with one really decent tier 1 carrier that's in the oil and gas, in the marine aviation sector, that would be big for us. I think our reinsurance software is a differentiator. It's quite a complex part of the entire sort of ecosystem of a P&C policy. So I think that's where we're aiming, and I think it would be good to have a proof of concept out there. It's been run through some smaller guys, but a really big crowd would be great.
Robert, you were mentioning that you spent your career. Why don't we just give a little bio? So you're the CEO now of this company. What were you doing before, and what's your ties to the insurance industry?
So I started off life as a stockbroker, believe it or not. Started an online stockbroker, IPO'd that, sold it off, and fell into the insurance industry by mistake. My family's
Lots of people do.
Everyone does. My family's been in insurance 8 generations. My brother's very much an insurance man. They sucked me in by basically convincing me to buy a carrier. There was no software in that. I bought my old friend out of the online stockbroking business. We built a separate software system, housed it in a separate company, built it for that carrier, and then went to the market and started selling it elsewhere. But I focused on the carrier side while he focused on the software side. That business is still going, very operational in the London and, across the African and European markets, as I mentioned. And he wasn't that keen to enter the US, so we bought the source code out of that business. I largely sold all the carriers that I had, and I'm not really in that space anymore. I've got an interest in a runoff carrier, but, that really is what my background was the carrier side. In the last 3 years, been involved in the software side, although I did have a stake in that business. The other business that we started, the chief operating officer of that was called Kendall Insurance Technologies. He left, as well as a host of other developers. And between all of us, we've really been developing that software for the US market. So that's really my background, more carrier than anything else, and reinsurer side also.
I love that. I was telling you that our audience is primarily risk managers, and what they want exposure to is what's happening in innovation and technology. So that's why they listen to this podcast. A lot of risk managers are drowning in swivel chair work. One system to another system, legacy systems not integrated to other systems. Where does simplicity pay off fastest? Is it in implementation time, user adoption, fewer handoffs? What is really the boon of just rethinking this as a more simple stack?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much all of those. Lead time into, getting a system integrated shouldn't take as long as it is taking. I mean, obviously for a risk manager, there's frustration around that because they're needing access to data.
They don't really have resources or data. Yeah.
But I think a risk manager's role is also changing tremendously. I mean, a lot of guys, we bumped into a guy who's running a really large food business in Switzerland. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization. They don't use insurance brokers anymore unless they're obligated to, unless it's mandatory. And it's pretty interesting. If I look at his role, how much more he's taken on, they're busy. As you say, these guys, a lot of swivel chair stuff. So I think they really do need access to simple data, and the data that they need might be very different to what a broker's looking at or to what an insurer's looking at or what a reinsurer's looking at. So I think it's essential that, it's just data delivered very simply and quickly. Be it as simple as a loss ratio, that needs to be live and on time.
I coach a lot of risk managers that they need to become more technical in order to manage what the future of risk looks like. Do you agree with that statement?
100% agree. I think also it's one of our frustrations is that we are new in the market. There's some big established brands, obviously, where we're trying to cut in. A lot of managers will look and just go, well, hang on, I know these guys. Let me rather run with them. They've been around 20 years. Who are these guys? Come out of the African jungle, are they any good, etc. So if there's guys who've got a technical background or technical knowledge, they can look at it and make an informed decision. I don't think it's just risk managers, by the way. I think it's across the board. And I think one of the big differences that I've seen in the US market is because of the size, and this market is vast versus the London market, is that you don't have many generalists who understand the entire sort of cycle of an insurance company. In other words, they're not looking just at the marketing side, marketing new policies or policy issuance side or underwriting. If you're doing that, you're very focused on that. You're not looking at claims at all. Whereas other markets, you do see that right across the value chain of an insurance policy. And it's the same for a risk manager needs to know all of that.
I love so much stuff that you were just saying, because I believe in generalists over specialists. I believe the power of technology is to do that specialized work. We have to do that work.
Absolutely.
People have to do that work. And it's important to have good researchers and good people contributing to that specialization work. But if you're going to simplify, you have to understand. So the hardest part about simplification is you got to take something complex and make it more simple.
Absolutely.
Simple isn't easy.
Yeah.
It's actually hard.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It's just making it easier in the future.
How do you distinguish between simple and pretty UI?
I think they're probably part of the same thing. I do think that user experience is a lot more important than you would think it is. And previously, our software was very industrial. When you looked at it, you're kind of going into something that's just black and white. Probably be working on that every day, you start losing interest. And bizarrely, little visual changes that we add, it makes a big difference. And it does keep it simple also, because just keeping the interest basically keeps knowledge growing, and that's what keeps it simple.
Let's talk about the market a little bit. From your vantage point, what are buyers actually clamoring for right now? Fewer portals, cleaner API, transparent pricing. What is the market telling you? I'm staying on this simple thread, right?
No, absolutely. I think one of the frustrations, if you're a broker and coming from, the carrier side, we would always sort of battle with brokers because we wanted them to submit it a certain way. So again, the complication, you're dealing with 5 different carriers, it's 5 different submissions. Some of them say, right, I need it in an Adobe PDF, send it to me like that. This is the structure, what it looks like. I think the likes of Accord are simplifying that, but there's different platforms. Ultimately, I do think the market needs a single platform where brokers can submit, choose the carriers they want to share that data with or share the information with. So it really does need to be smoothed out. And I think there needs to be a little bit more trust in the industry to work together, be it between brokers and between carriers, just so that there's a little bit more functionality between different sectors, being the broking sector, the carrier sector, and a little bit of trust, as it were. Not that, the big bad Skynet's going to take all my data and use it against me. I think it's going that way. They are, as I say, the likes of Accord are getting traction.
Is the gap really technology-based or misaligned people? My question here is, in your experience with your background, and I have opinions on this, where does transformation die for companies?
Lack of inertia. Unfortunately, you've got carriers. It's better to not have any surprises. It's better to be very stable. So they're very cautious about making any changes,
Even though all these carriers have innovation teams.
Absolutely, 100%. But a lot of them won't listen to the innovation teams. That's the way we've always done it. I had a very interesting discussion with someone. He said, right, you've been in the industry 25 years, 2001, when you started that other business. What's changed? What's developed? He went, no, actually not much. The broker still submits stuff via a PDF, and then, some underwriter has to pull through all of that, figure out what's going on. There's some additions. It's cool. We've got the internet, to go and pay on and, to kind of look at your policy.
They'll cancel your policy faster if you don't pay.
Exactly. But, it's there. And I just think there's also a change in the demographic of insurance. I hate to say it, most people in the industry look like me, but I think there's a lot more women coming into the industry, and they're certainly shaking things up. And that's, it's a good thing. And younger people too.
Let's talk about Reinsurance Connect launch. Let's talk about the product. What specific problems does that product solve today, and where is it going?
So most of the software, pretty much all the software that's out there that acts as, for seeding reinsurance is pretty much taken from a policy admin system and adapted to the reinsurance market rather than being purpose-built. So what we've done is taken it out, purpose-built software that really does deal only with the reinsurance sector. And the reinsurance sector is something that's very underserved, very underloved. You don't have the amounts of, amounts of guys doing what we do looking at it. So we've gone in there and we've really built a system that deals with the likes of your sliding scale commissions, proportional, non-proportional treaties.
Are you having to educate that that reinsurance market is underserviced, or is it, yeah, we know kind of thing in the industry?
It's not something that you don't have a lot of reinsurance buyers out there looking for the software, because I just think it's largely been unavailable. We have done a soft launch prior to us actually officially announcing it, and we picked up 2 reinsurance carriers already. One signed, the other one I'm very confident will sign. When we've shown it to them, the pennies dropped. So I think it's something that will take a lot of work on our side to get it out there, but if they know it's available, they'll buy it.
Yeah, great. What's success look like 6 months out now?
I think, again, just getting a really big, specialty carrier on board. Again, just making sure the guys that we've got on board are happy, that it's not just, cool, we got them on board, excellent, tick, let's move to the next client.
Are you doing like an advisory model with them? How are you making sure that their feedback gets incorporated? What's your product management?
So in terms of product management, we do all of the integrations ourselves. We've got a team that manages that. They don't also just hand off and move over to the guys who are going to manage you from there on and service you. Pretty much the guys who integrate are also continuing with the clients. Again, everything is done in-house. We've got a big team of developers, we've got a big team of guys, business analysts and people servicing our clients. And I think that's essential for us to make sure that our name does stay as good as it should be.
I absolutely agree. Let's talk about implementation and ROI. What's that look like for you guys?
So implementation, I think now...
I mean, you're building integration, so that means it takes time. That's code for it takes time.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, ultimately, we've got a very good platform. I mean, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of configuration we really need to do. We've got a lot of products that are already built and serving the market. So new guys come on board. It's fairly quick. I think the biggest thing for us is we are very much a startup. Come out of Africa. We're not well known. We're up against some big names that are very much, household names in the insurance industry. We just got to get our name out there, and be that through word of mouth, our clients being happy, or us just shaking hands until we got tennis elbow. That's pretty much everywhere where we can do it.
You seem like you know how to do this. Do some risky or not too risky. Auto binding based on incomplete third-party data with no user.
Super risky.
Okay. One vendor acting as a data source, rating engine, and reconciliation with no independent audit. Do you think you need independent audits on things?
No, I don't think so.
The black box that is AI, too risky or risky?
Too risky.
How are you solving that? How are you putting AI into your platform, which I'm guessing you're probably doing from the ground up?
Absolutely. So I think it does need to be purpose-built, and it can't just be thrown out into the sort of, into the stratosphere for everyone to look at. Insurers are allergic to anyone looking at their data, and yet, feeding it into these large language models is just spraying it out there for everybody to ultimately the machine to learn what they're doing. So I think it needs to be done very cautiously, built in-house by carriers, built using the likes of ourselves or whoever they are using. So I think it is a super risky part of it.
One thing that you keep saying to the audience that they might not pick up is purpose-built. So that usually means I'm a product manager by training. So that usually means that you have an opinion, your software is opinionated. How do you manage having an opinion in an industry where everybody wants you to do it their way?
I think, look, largely we will do it the way the client wants. But I mean, coming from the carrier background, I believe that I have got the ability to make a logical argument why it should be done a certain way. That being said, there are certain carriers and certain things that need to be done their way, and we're all ears to that. And we're very much able to adapt to what a client wants, rather than saying, there's the software, you adapt to that. We certainly try and adapt to what
so more purpose-built from the goal that you're trying to accomplish.
Correct, absolutely.
So highly specific.
Yeah.
I love that. What's a piece of advice you would give someone that's entering into the industry today?
Get as many young people in your business as possible. I mean, one thing that's I've seen is that young people are super competent versus where I was when I was in my 20s. I mean, the guys are hardworking. I mean, they've got their heads on. I mean, The guys in my organization, I've got to break their legs to keep up with them. I mean, they are ambitious. The story that millennials are not hardworking is completely incorrect, and they're knowledgeable. They know their way around. They're not as greedy as I think we were back in the day. We're just trying to get money on board, buy a house, get a car, do whatever. I think a lot of them see a very big picture. So I think get young people into your organization.
Amazing. I really appreciate that advice. Thank you so much. I really had a good conversation.
Thank you.
Risk Management Brick by Brick is brought to you by TrustLayer. Find out how TrustLayer manages risk so that the people can build the physical world around us. Head over to trustlayer.io. And then make sure to subscribe to Risk Management Brick by Brick on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. On behalf of the TrustLayer team, thank you for listening.